Hi, it's Mark Item with HONU Trading for the weekly review going into the week of June 12th, 2023. As always, educational purposes only. Know your time frame and risk tolerance. Job one is always risk management. Never forget that one. Follow me on Twitter at HONUMGMT, at HONU Management. And if you find these videos valuable, take a moment to like and subscribe. So our agenda today, last week I said what a difference a day makes. Well, this week we definitely have a much more positive and constructive week. So I'm going to say what a difference a week makes. We talked about last week that the market climbs the wall of worry, but also the market knows about every single one of the bricks in that wall of worry. Well, this week we've got another brick coming, the Fed. And their meeting ends on Wednesday with an interest rate decision. Now, the markets have rallied and improved going into that. So why that rally and improvement has happened doesn't matter. It is. We'll see that when we look at the week in review. For many weeks, I've talked about the biggies and the smalls. Well, the biggies took the week off and breadth is improving, particularly amongst the small and mid caps. Probably back to risk on. The financials have moved out of the woods into the meadow. And we'll talk about the magazine cover curse and finally a little personal note. So definitely a week for the Rip Snorton Durham Bulls. Although it was kind of a weird week when we take a look. Down day on Monday, back up into Wednesday morning, down the rest of the day. And then from Thursday morning, a sharp rally into early Friday and wound up a little bit higher on the day. Now the low for the week was 5 points above that previous 415, 420 that had been resistance for well over a year. What we ran into was the August 2022 highs around 431, 432. Now that's a kind of an obvious place to take a pause, but let's see what happens from here. Now I say it was a weird week. Here's what I mean. Now, Monday was actually a down day, but we had net 108 new highs according to IBD. Tuesday was a slightly up day, plus 160, and this was the weird one. On Wednesday, which was a down day, we had the strongest net new highs of the week, plus 257. A strong up day on Thursday, plus 114, up day again on Friday, plus 129. For the week, we wound up plus 700, which is far and away the strongest breadth we've had in months. So it's safe to say that the bear is snoozing on the picnic table. We've definitely seen improvement, particularly amongst the mid caps relative to their cap weighted brethren, the mid caps and small caps being equal weighted. So definitely some strong improvement there. The Qs, not so much, SPY a little bit. And when we take a look at the weekly heat map, this is what I mean by the big guys taking the week off. Microsoft down 2.5, Google down 2, Facebook down 3, Nvidia down 1, Apple took the week off, Amazon down a fraction. The only one of the big caps that had a big week was Tesla, up 14. So big week there. Our risk on, risk off measure, and again, a hat tip to Chris at Chivaco Capital. This shows the S&P 1500 Composite Stock Index. That's your 500 large, 400 mid, and 600 smalls versus a relative performance to intermediate term treasuries. This gives us a pretty clear risk on, risk off measure that, as we can see, can have periods of time, about a year in two different cases here, where it's indecisive. But when it clearly shows risk off or risk on, that really tips its hand. And it looks like we've moved back into the risk on regime by this measure. Financials, this is the big picture, and this is why I've talked so much about the 2930 level. This was resistance going all the way back to 2008, tested again in 17 and just before COVID. Finally broken, that should be support, and so far that's held 1, 2, 3 times. When we zoom in a little bit to the more detail, now here we have the moving averages. The 200-day, the bottom of that is the 50-day. The upper end of this one is the 8 and 21. So 3 of those moving averages are flat or moving higher, and XLF now had a low in that danger zone, a higher low, a couple of higher lows, and now we have higher highs. So that's a probable change in trend to the upside. If we look at the big banks, didn't get quite as positive, but the 50-day has actually turned up a little bit, and again we have the higher lows and higher highs. Still got work to do to get above the 200-day. The smaller banks, even a little bit less impressive, but still that 50-day is trending higher, as are the 8 and 21, and we still have higher lows and higher highs. So that's why I say the financials have crept not only to the edge of the forest, but they've eased into the meadow. Next week, not a big week in earnings. In fact, one of the flatter weeks I've seen in a long time. You've got Adobe, Kroger, and Lennar and the home builders. Other than that, not much. Now, the fly in the ointment is Barron's on their magazine cover. Says this market has legs and we've got a galloping, dancing bull. Now, if you're familiar with the magazine cover indicator, generally by the time good news or bad news, whether it's stocks, whether it's inflation, whether it's interest rates, whatever, by the time it makes the magazine cover, that trend is pretty well over. So that's why I put on there, uh-oh. So we'll see if the magazine cover holds this time. Who knows? Finally, on a personal note, we're getting a remodel done on our place at home, and it looks like I picked the wrong week to start a 3-month road trip. So we're going to have some fun over the next 3 weeks. It's called Living Life. But the timing is odd in that the market finally seems to be improving, so we picked the wrong week to start a 3-month road trip. In review, what a difference a week makes. We got another big brick in the wall of worry this week, the Fed, but the market has rallied in anticipation of that. Anyway, Biggies took the week off, breadth is improving, risk is probably back on, the financials have crept into the meadow, and we'll see if we can overcome the magazine cover curse. So, as my buddy HONU always says, small losers win.